So, what if you could just change your race? I mean, really think about that. It's a pretty provocative question, right? Well, that's the idea at the very heart of a new movie trailer called Slanted, and boy, has it kicked off a debate online. Today we're going to dive into this whole controversy and figure out why this satirical film is striking such a chord.
And honestly, the film's tagline says it all. It really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. It's such a simple but kind of unsettling phrase that just gets right to the radical idea this movie is built on.
All right, so what is this movie actually about? Let's break down the plot. Based on what we see in the trailer, that's got everybody talking.
Okay, so picture this. We've got an Asian American high school student who feels like she's on the outside looking in. Her goal seems pretty simple. She wants to win prom queen. But her method? Whoa, it is anything but simple. The trailer shows her finding this, mysterious biotech clinic, going through a pretty wild procedure, and then she reemerges as a white woman, all to test the theory that changing her race will completely change her life.
Now, this fictional procedure, which the movie calls ethnic modification, is really the engine of the whole plot. The trailer itself calls it boundary pushing, and, well, that's the spark that lit this entire online fire. It's this high-concept, almost sci-fi idea dropped right into the middle of what looks like a high school comedy.
And that totally wild premise is exactly what split the YouTube commentators who were reacting to the trailer. Their whole debate pretty much boiled down to one key question. Is this actually clever satire, or is the entire idea just fundamentally flawed from the get-go?
And this slide really nails that divide. On one side, you had people saying, hey, if the movie is self-aware and makes fun of everyone, this could actually be hilarious. But on the other side, people felt the whole concept was, and these are their words, kind of off, and even absolute cringe. They just were not buying the character's motivation for doing this. So the commentator's real hang-up wasn't the sci-fi procedure itself. It was the why. Why would this character go to such an extreme? And that question is what led them to their biggest critique of the whole movie's narrative. One host just cut right through it all and asked this question directly. This really gets to the absolute heart of their skepticism. They're basically challenging the very foundation of the main character's entire journey, at least as the trailer presents it. And yeah, this follow-up quote just drives home their disbelief. They just weren't sold on the idea that the character's life was so hard that ethnic modification was a believable way out. For them, the film's story of victimhood just didn't line up with their perception of reality. So when you boil it all down, it comes to this. If the audience doesn't buy the why, then the whole satire built on top of it, it just kind of crumbles, The joke can't land if the setup feels completely disconnected from real life. So after all of this criticism, where did they end up? Well, let's look at their final take on the trailer, which, kind of surprisingly, wasn't really much of a take at all. Yep, after all that back and forth, they didn't really come to a firm conclusion. They literally just ended it by saying they don't know what to think. And while they sort of left the door open, their skepticism about the movie's premise was, well, it was pretty obvious. And this slide, it might just explain why their opinion was so up in the air. See, their chat about Slanted was just one tiny part of a much bigger conversation they were having about a ton of other pop culture stuff going on that week. With their attention split, it's totally possible they just didn't have the time or energy to give the trailer a really deep dive. All of this really leaves us with a much bigger question, not just about this movie, but about satire itself. For a joke to really work, does its premise have to feel 100% true to every single person watching? Or is the whole point of satire to push our buttons and challenge how we see things, even if it feels a little off? It really makes you wonder, where is that line between a sharp critique and a premise that just totally misses the mark?